Hello, this is Ugo Uche with Road to Resolutions, and you can learn more about me at roadtoresolutions.com. In this video, I'm going to be talking about oppositional defiant disorder. This video was inspired by a conversation I had with a parent whose son was diagnosed with oppositional defiant disorder. Now, this parent, we were discussing the son's situation, and I got an earload about the family history, and I was listening and understanding and taking notes regarding what was going on with the family history. And then, you know, it was revealed later on that the kid had seen a psychiatrist who had diagnosed him with opposition defiant disorder. It made sense with what I have heard prior to. But I noticed something peculiar in which this parent wasn't necessarily making the connection between the child's history and the formal diagnosis. And I was even more concerned that the person who gave this child the diagnosis of oppositional defiant disorder, it didn't seem like anybody had made the connection between, hey, this is what this kid has been going through and here is the end result. So I see a lot of, I see a lot of situations like this, and I gave the parent my professional opinion about oppositional defiant disorder, and the parent happened to agree with me. The parent said, oh, that makes a lot of sense. So I'm going to share with you my professional opinion about oppositional defiant disorder. Before I begin, I want to emphasize that I'm going to begin by reading the definition from my reference manual of the DSM V, and but a lot of the definitions, a lot of the symptoms that I'm going to read in the definitions, most people can relate to it. Like, who hasn't lost their temper? You know, how many people do you know at some point in their life hasn't lost their temper? Every toddler going through the normal stages of development has lost their temper, and so it's important to put this in context, and the context is frequency. And I think to understand that I am discussing opposition defiant disorder in the absence of any cognitive or neurological issues such as bipolar or such as autism or Asperger's, right? So that's maybe for another blog or video. So I'm going to read the definition of opposition defiant disorder, and then I will discuss the connection between a child's past and the development of opposition defiant disorder. Alright, so oppositional defiant disorder, a pattern of angry/irritable mood, argumentative/defiant behavior, or vindictiveness lasting at least 6 months, as evidenced by at least 4 symptoms from any of the following categories, and exhibited during interaction with at least one individual who is not a sibling. Alright, category 1, angry/irritable mood. 3 symptoms there: often loses temper, is often touchy or easily annoyed, is often angry and resentful. Category 2, argumentative/defiant behavior. There are 4 symptoms here: often argues with authority figures, or in regards to children or adolescents, often argues with adults, often actively defies or refuses to comply with requests from authority figures or with rules, often deliberately annoys others, often blames others for his or her mistakes or misbehavior. Vindictiveness is the 3rd category, has 1 symptom, has been spiteful or vindictive at least twice within the past 6 months. Okay, the danger behind this diagnosis given without explanation is the idea that it is some sort of genetic defect. I mean, this is the conclusion most people will come to without an explanation or without a connection being made between, you know, a diagnosis such as oppositional defiant disorder and the person's history and past. It's very dangerous because most kids I have worked with who had this diagnosis had a lot of shame, you know, in regards to the stigma attached to this diagnosis. And I frequently see people with this diagnosis not making a connection between where they are now and their history, and actually making that connection speeds up the recovery process. Okay, so let's say you have a child, you know, whose mom is neglectful, emotionally absent, and whose father is a drug addict and physically abusive, maybe even worse. And the child is surrounded by, you know, family members, adult family members, who are in some shape or form equally unreliable and untrustworthy. Well, this child is going to learn not to trust authority figures, and this child is going to generally learn how to develop a distrust for others, because children are going to mimic the adults in their lives, and they're going to take things one step further, for good or for worse. In that situation, if the child, especially if the child has a disposition towards being more courageous, oppositional defiant disorder makes a lot of sense, because it's a defense mechanism. If your father was unreliable and abusive towards you, if your mother was unreliable and emotionally neglectful, why should you all of a sudden start trusting adults in your life? Because a child who is difficult and defiant towards neglectful and abusive parents is going to decrease the likelihood of abuse occurring, or reduce the severity of the abuse being visited upon them by said neglectful parents or guardians. You know, so it's sort of like the bully in the schoolyard is less likely to pick on somebody who he knows is going to fight back. He's going to pick on the quiet and the passive kid to feel good about himself. So the same rules apply in a family milieu. And you know, when I was discussing with this parent, it was something similar. You know, the parent herself wasn't the culprit or the abuser of the child, but in listening to the story and what the parent had shared with me, it just made sense why this kid would be defiant. This had been his coping mechanism, and the problem was that he was now older, a teenager, and he didn't necessarily see any reason to change. When I work with kids like this, I acknowledge their past, I understand what they've gone through, and I connect the dots between their past and their current behavior, and then we work together towards developing tact, assertiveness, addressing grievances or disputes from a place of respect and understanding, treat other people like you want to be treated, and maintaining that courage, because that courage is a good thing. The only problem is that they've not been role modeled how to use courage appropriately. And so when you explain it this way to parents and kids, you know, kids who have been given this diagnosis, it speeds up recovery, you know, by leaps and bounds, versus in the absence of an explanation, you said, oh, you have oppositional defiant disorder, and just be nicer to people, be more respectful, and in the absence of an explanation, you know, it's actually quite dangerous, you know, for a kid to go about thinking, wow, something is terribly wrong with me. It's like, no, it's a misunderstanding. You've developed in response to your experiences, you've developed maladaptive behaviors that aren't working anymore, and it's time for you to modify them. So that's the truth about oppositional defiant disorder. My name is Ugo Uche with Road to Resolutions. If you like this video, share it, leave your comments below. Thank you for watching.